Because it is like, you'll see the traffic jam that will come through here.
I mean, it's wider than the ramp currently.
Okay.
So it should be enough. But I also recognize that it's a little bit of a turn. So
Yeah, I'll just try to give it like one more foot.
yeah, that's fine.
You're ready to go.
Gosh, I'm guessing you were over before you were through it.
Yeah, Spotify's on in there.
Anything to mic in there?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm gonna go set one up real quick. Just throw on the wireless things in.
thing that mic's not too live. Or I'm much shorter and you can't hear me. Oh, you can now. Well. Good morning, everyone. Sorry. If you could find your way to your chairs, please, we'd like to begin. Try not to speak too loudly. Someone hit the doors? No? Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our MLK Day of Service. Today, we honor Dr. King's legacy by coming together to serve our communities and uplift one another. His vision of justice, equality, and unity calls us to take action, not just in words, but in deeds and service. As we begin this day of service, let us remember Dr. King's powerful reminder that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are we doing for others? It's so good, it's on the back of our shirts, so that's good. Thank you for being here to answer the call, and let's make today a meaningful tribute to his dream. Thank you. We are going to begin our ceremony with first a video and then a speaker, Miss Nailah Randall-Bellinger, and you will be wildly entertained. So thank you for coming, and we will get started.
I too sing America, Langston. But what does my voice sound like among a choir of children of the African diaspora? Does it evoke a discordant melody created during the exchange of cowrie shells for the black body? Does it replay an A flat that sounded during the seawater crossing? Or perhaps a whole note that entrapped my ancestors into a violent time signature? How high was the pitch of their repetitive resilience, creating a bridge to the chorus of their humanity? Does my voice hold more soprano or alto in the harmony of reclaiming identity? Is there a polyrhythmic crescendo emphasizing our liberation, our ownership of property, of our bodies, and of our minds? Yes, I too sing America to the rhythm of the seawater spirits.
A dancer's ode to the spirit of a king. Yes, I too sing America. I pour libations to those who fought for my right to do so. To sing a song of my existence, my visibility, and my inclusion in the very fabric of humanity. It has been my life's work as a dancer. It is through the embodied text and the kinesthetic expression of its spirituality that I pay tribute to my African ancestors. On this very day of remembrance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I stand here as a part of a long tradition of those who dared not only to imagine a better world, but to craft one. A world that speaks to the true essence of humanity. A world that moves and a world that goes beyond the narrow ideologies of conventional ideas of what social justice should be, and instead puts into practice a blueprint that inspires all of us to take action. As Dr. King led the charge for us to keep moving on, whether we flew, walked, ran, the call was the same, to keep moving until we transform this world into a place where there was equitable justice and it served as the norm. As a practicing artist, I recognize the artistry in Dr. King, especially in the masterful language he used. In speeches like, "I've been to the mountaintop," "Letters from a Birmingham jail," "Where do we go from here?" and of course, "I have a dream." These speeches are executions of their powerful sermons of a study of rhythm, cadence, and soul-stirring delivery. His words were music like a jazz musician's orchestration of notes. He crafted each phrase with intention, rearranging them to create a symphony that transcends time, echoing the voices of our ancestors. His legacy reaches far beyond the political realm of rebels and revolutionaries. Artists across all disciplines have always been the voice of the people, offering an artistic interpretation of the struggle. And as the canon of freedom fighters has grown, so has the dance for liberation. I stand on the shoulders of dance activists such as Hemsley Winfield and Edna Guy, Pearl Primus, Catherine Dunham, Alvin Ailey, Arthur Mitchell, and countless others who were interested in demanding our visibility, fighting against the marginalized of the Black body, and creating art that spoke to the African American experience. Following in their footsteps, I continue to choreograph works that focus on the historical, social, and political events that have shaped the African American experience. My goal is to create purposeful art that educates, inspires, and moves us all to become drum majors of justice who dare to take a stand. Each of us, no matter what our talent be, has a role in dismantling injustice. By using our God-given gifts to contribute to the cause, we honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we honor those seawater spirits. Thank you.
I definitely don't want to follow that. That was amazing. Thank you very much. We had a speaker that was going to be speaking next, and unfortunately she fell ill. And we have a video that she had selected that really spoke to her and spoke to some of the, some of the themes that she was going to speak on. It's a short video, just about 5 minutes. So I will go ahead and let that go on. And thank you.
Three facts about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Fact number 1. Dr. King's birth name was Michael, not Martin. The civil rights leader was born Michael King Jr. on January 15, 1929. In 1934, however, his father, a pastor at Atlanta's Ebenezer Baptist Church, traveled to Germany and became inspired by the Protestant Reformation leader Martin Luther. As a result, King Sr. changed his own name as well as that of his 5-year-old son. Fact number 2. Dr. King entered college at the age of 15. He was such a gifted student that he skipped grades 9 and 12 in high school before enrolling in 1944 at Morehouse College, the alma mater of his father and maternal grandfather. He graduated from Morehouse College with a degree in sociology. His additional education included earning a divinity degree from Pennsylvania's Crozer Theological Seminary and a PhD from Boston University. Fact number 3. In 1983, Dr. King became only the second American to have his birthday observed as a national holiday. George Washington was the first American to have this distinct honor. It is known today as President's Day. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill that created a federal holiday to honor King. It was first commemorated in 1986 and has since been celebrated on the third Monday in January. Dr. King's Boston years. As recalled by a lifelong friend, the late Reverend Dr. Mike Lee Haynes, in a letter to the Bay State Banner in 1982. He stated that after the late Martin Luther King Jr. settled in for his doctoral studies at Boston University in the fall of 1951, one of his priority non-academic tasks was to make 3 vital contacts in Roxbury. The first contact was with 12th Baptist Church. Dr. King had been told by his father to connect with his friend, the late Reverend William Hester, the pastor of 12th Baptist Church in Roxbury, and his wife Beulah, a prominent social worker in Boston. It was during Dr. King's years at Boston University that he often spoke, becoming a preaching regular at 12th Baptist Church. Dr. King's relationship with 12th Baptist remained throughout his life. According to the late Mike Lee Haynes, Dr. King always considered 12th Baptist as his Boston home church. Reverend Haynes stated that the second vital contact was Mary Powell, then the part-time secretary of 12th Baptist Church and special graduate student at the New England Conservatory of Music, the same school Coretta Scott was attending. It was Mary Powell, Reverend Haynes stated, that played Cupid in bringing Coretta and Martin together right here in Boston. They became husband and wife in 1953. The third contact was with a family friend of Martin's father, an Atlanta native and a retired school teacher, Mrs. Barbara Wright. She had moved to Boston and had become active as a religious educator at 12th Baptist Church and in the city's weekday school program. She had known Martin since his birth. When Dr. King preached at 12th Baptist Church in 1951, Reverend Haynes was a seminary student and had just begun his duties as a minister to youth. The two of them became respected colleagues and lifelong friends. In Reverend Haynes' role as senior minister of 12th Baptist Church and as a member of the state legislature, he continued to have contact with Martin and provided personal services to him on his many visits to Boston. 1965 was a notable year. Dr. King led the Selma Montgomery Voting Rights March. It was the year of escalating warfare in South Vietnam, the assassination of Malcolm X, and there was also a massive power failure in the northeastern U.S. and Canada. Reverend Haynes recalled, one of his greatest joys happened in 1965. He participated in the planning of Dr. King's Great March on Boston in April of 1965 and joined with 2 other black legislative colleagues to pass the bill that invited Dr. King to address a joint session of the Massachusetts Senate and House of Representatives. This was Dr. King's first invitation to address any legislative assembly in the nation. On April 23, 1965, Dr. King arrived in Roxbury to lead the first and only civil rights march in the Northeast. The march began at the William E. Carter Playground and continued to Boston Common. This narrator, at the age of 11, participated in the march along with her sister and father. It was a highlight of my life. On that cool, damp Friday in April, singing freedom songs, I, along with thousands of others, walked from Roxbury down Columbus Avenue to the bandstand on Boston Common to hear Martin Luther King Jr. address the marchers. Dr. King spoke for 25 minutes on issues of racial segregation, housing, employment, and de facto segregation in education. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. Now is the time to make brotherhood a reality. Now is the time, he said. The next day, the Globe headline read, "We shall overcome. Dr. King leads 22,000 in march." The Boston Globe reported these remarks from Dr. King's speech on Boston Common, and I quote, "Little did I imagine that such a day was possible when I walked through this same Boston Common as a student 10 years ago. This will go down as one of the greatest days that Boston has ever seen. The vision of the new Boston must extend into Roxbury. We shall overcome inequality and school segregation. Justice will roll down like great waters and righteousness like streams." End quote. 3 years later, Dr. King was assassinated on April 4, 1968. As stated on Boston.gov, for the rest of his life, Dr. King wrote in his autobiography, and I quote, "One of the tenets of my philosophy was the conviction that nonviolent resistance was one of the most potent weapons available to oppressed people in their quest for social justice." End quote. His fervent belief in nonviolent protest would have profound consequences for American history. And so today, in 2021, we see that the fight for equity continues because the war has not yet been won. There is still much work to do in Dr. King's pursuit for liberty and justice for all.
And we are here to do it. So please exit these doors and walk out to read about women who have helped the movement, as well as going into the Activator Fair and seeing what you can do, because the day of service is not lip service. The day of service is physical service, getting out and helping people in our community. So thank you so much for attending, and have a wonderful day.
So should I? Okay. And then do you want me to put the chair and table on the stage? Or? Okay. Good to know. It's funny being in the tech.
chair.
Grab MC1.
Absolutely.
John, which one of these is MC1?
Are these not labeled anymore?
Oh no.
Oh, touch, bro. Which microphone? Oh, no, this one says MC1.
Great.
All right, let's use this. Thank you.
Hello?
MC1?
And I'm muted. MC1, yes.
Hello? Good morning.
Am I? Okay. Oh, just they have to turn you on.
Oh, got it. That's the picture when Loretta was inducted into the National Museum.
And then, yeah, all of those mics are available.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Every year it comes to this point where I'm like, why didn't we? Oh, and this is working now.
Yes.
I'll stand back. Good morning. Welcome. Please come in, find a seat, get comfortable. I actually challenge you as you come in, find somebody you don't know and sit next to them. That's what the Lexington Human Rights Committee is really promoting this year. Challenge ourselves, break out of our social bubbles, meet somebody different, learn about their life story, and that is how we're going to build a community and a movement. So thank you. And I'm just talking. I hope you don't mind my voice. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for plowing yourself early this morning. We are so excited for our program today. Our speaker is here. She just traveled 2 hours from Holyoke. So, yeah, that was the end of that thought. I'm just going to give it one more minute, and then I'm going to get us started. We're going to start with opening prayers from Pastor Rachel, and then we're followed by singing and music from the SNAP Chorus, which is Special Needs Arts Program. And I encourage everybody to sing along, join in. That's really the best way to amplify the energy. So those of you looking for a place to sit, earlier I was just saying, challenge yourself. Sit next to somebody you don't know and shake their hand and say, good morning, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Okay, so as we have our audience come in, I just want to start by saying thank you very much again for coming this beautiful morning. It was a little tenuous last night, but I woke up to a beautiful blanket of fresh snow, you know, a sign of winter. Yay! So we're going to start our program this morning with opening prayers from Pastor Rachel from Grace Chapel. They're followed by singing and choir music from SNAP Chorus, our Special Needs Arts Program. And they grace us with their singing every year, and it's a really special moment. So once again, I encourage everyone to join in. After that, we're going to have Melanie Thompson help us frame our speaker for this morning and what this program honoring women of the civil rights movement is all about. And that's going to be followed by Stephanie Sue, who's going to introduce Loretta Ross. And I've been told she loves to get questions, so please
don't be shy in getting engaged. I'm going to now pass the mic to Pastor Rachel. Thank you so much for doing our opening prayer this morning.
Thank you, Christina. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Snap Choir. So glad to have you with us. So glad to have you all here. My name is Rachel Keeler. I serve as the campus pastor of this church. We, Grace Chapel, are delighted to be able to host the Lexington Human Rights Committee's 11th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. So thank you so much. Welcome. Please be at home here. If you are new to this building, the restrooms are down the hall to the left. There's also an all-gender restroom inside of our cafe. So please be at home here. I would like to start with an opening prayer, acknowledging that we come together from many faith traditions. All are welcome here, but also acknowledging that his passion for God was a huge part of what drove Dr. King in his work and shaped his entire life, that he was moved by a vision that came to him through the gospel. So I thought that an appropriate way to honor him and begin our time together today would be to just use his words. So I have a prayer that he prayed that I will just invite you, no matter what your faith tradition is, invite you to enter in as you feel comfortable. So let us pray in the words of Dr. King. Most gracious and all-wise God, before whose face the generations rise and fall, thou in whom we live and move and have our being, we thank thee for all thy good and gracious gifts, for life and for health, for food and for raiment, for the beauties of nature and for human nature. We come before thee painfully aware of our inadequacies and shortcomings. We realize that we stand surrounded with the mountains of love, and we deliberately dwell in the valley of hate. We stand amid the forces of truth and deliberately lie. We are forever offered the high road, and yet we choose to travel the low road. For these sins, O God, forgive. Break the spell of that which blinds our minds. Purify our hearts that we may see thee. O God, in these turbulent days when fear and doubt are mounting high, give us broad visions, penetrating eyes, and power of endurance. Help us to work with renewed vigor for a warless world, for a better distribution of wealth, and for a brotherhood that transcends race or color. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful time here today, honoring the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
I'm sorry. I was clapping and singing on the back, and then I didn't want to run down. So sorry, there was a little delay. Thank you so much to Snap Choir for joining us, helping us open our program. We appreciate everything you do and the warmth and beauty you bring to our community. It's very meaningful what you do. So thank you very much. So I think if Snap Choir can exit, we will. Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to have Melanie, as I explained earlier, help introduce our program for today and frame it with how we're trying to honor the women of the civil rights movement. I will admit it's been a learning process, and as with all learning processes, what you learn is how little you know, how much more I need to know. I encourage everyone here, don't leave it today. Take this moment, build the momentum, and tell your parents, tell your children, because this information cannot be lost. That much I know. And so thank you very much. I'm going to pass the mic to Melanie.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for coming out on this cold, snowy day to celebrate and honor the 30th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr. National Day of Service, and to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Two milestones that embody the spirit of justice, equality, and collective action. Dr. Martin Luther King once said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" Today, we're here not only to remember those words, but to live them. This day is a call to action, a reminder that every one of us has the power to create positive change in our communities. This year, we also shine a spotlight on the women of the civil rights movement, whose courage and determination laid the foundation for so many of the freedoms that we enjoy today. These women, often overlooked in history, stood shoulder to shoulder with Dr. King, fighting for justice, equality, and the right to vote. Their contributions remind us that progress is never the result of one person's efforts, but of collective courage and unity. As part of our celebration, we invite you to explore our exhibit, which is out as you walk through, and discover the stories of these remarkable women, their struggles, their triumphs, and their legacies. Let their stories inspire us to continue the work that they began. We also encourage you to visit our Activator Fair, a space dedicated to learning about local initiatives and signing up to take meaningful action. This is your opportunity to connect with organizers making a difference and to find your own way to contribute to building a more equitable and inclusive community. Thank you for being here today and carrying forward the dream of a better tomorrow. Together, let's make today a celebration of action, unity, and progress. Thank you so much. And now, I'd like to invite Stephanie Sue to introduce our wonderful keynote speaker. Thanks.
So I'm a little nervous because I'm a fan, a huge fan. That's to say it lightly. But Melanie, thank you for a wonderful introduction of our program today. When we were looking for a speaker, it was important for us to find someone who not only exemplifies Dr. King's call to action, but one who is also carrying on the courageous work of the women of the civil rights movement. It is with my greatest pleasure that I have the honor to introduce you to Loretta J. Ross. Loretta, as I was corrected, not to call her Miss Ross. Loretta's advocacy for women's rights and reproductive justice has been nothing short of revolutionary. Her work has been particularly vital in addressing the long-standing neglect, dismissal, and mistreatment of Black and brown women in healthcare. Loretta is a co-founder of Sister Song, a national activist organization dedicated to reproductive justice for women of color, and the Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective. She also served as the executive director of the DC Rape Crisis Center, and notably, she is credited with co-developing the foundational theory of reproductive justice, which has reshaped the conversation around women's rights globally. Her career is defined by a commitment to addressing systemic injustice and amplifying marginalized voices. A sought-after public speaker and educator, Loretta has inspired countless of individuals through her leadership, activism, and scholarship. Since 2022, Loretta has brought her brilliance to academia, serving as an associate professor in the study of women and gender at Smith College. There, she teaches an impactful course titled White Supremacy, Human Rights, and Calling in the Calling Out Culture. This course reflects her innovative approach to fostering dialogue and building bridges in our polarized world. Her numerous accolades reflect the profound impact of her work, and just a few of them, to mention them lightly, or not so. She earned the MacArthur Fellowship in 2022, and it's known as the Genius Grant. The Robert Coles Call of Service Award, also in 2022, and has been inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. We are privileged to have you here today.
My microphone is on because the light is still red. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, at least something works. You know, when you're a boomer, technology is not a guarantee. My VCR is still blinking, and all my students just laugh at me saying, "You still got a VCR?" I said, "Honey, you ain't even seen the turntable. What are you talking about?" Because I still got all my old albums. Well, it's such an honor to be here with y'all today. I have to just first make an apology. I have lived long enough to need those surgeries called glaucoma and cataracts. So my vision is very fuzzy right now. You could complain about needing those surgeries, but think about it. You lived long enough to need them, which a whole lot of people, including Dr. King, didn't. So never, ever complain about your privilege. Complain about your pain, but never about your privilege. Because we are blessed to still be around. I have to honestly say, though, that every MLK Day, I approach it with very mixed feelings. When I was a young activist living in Washington, D.C., every January 15th, we stand in the snow, demanding the recognition of Dr. King, until Ronald Reagan, of all people, finally signed the bill. Who would have expected of Reagan, right? But we used to call it Human Kindness Day. Standing in those snow, sub-zero temperatures, a lot of times in the snow. It doesn't often snow in D.C., but it seemed to do it every January 15th. We had to protest. And we fought so hard for the acknowledgement of this great man. And yet, every day that we celebrate him, we also have to mourn him at the same time. Because he fought for everything we believe in, and he paid the ultimate price with his life. And in many ways, he sacrificed his family to this too. I happen to live in Atlanta, and if you ever want to see how the death of a father can traumatize a family, you should watch The King Children. And yet, what Dr. King died for is so still far from being achieved. I think it's the bitterest irony that we're celebrating Dr. King on the day that Donald Trump is getting inaugurated. The world has a terrible sense of humor and a terrible sense of timing. And the fact that to this day, the majority of white people and some misbegotten people of color thought it was okay to hand our fragile democracy over to him again. Not because they didn't know who he was, but because they liked who he is. Means that Dr. King's dream has been kicked down the road for another whole generation. And yet we have to celebrate that he lived and mourn that he died before any of his dreams is coming true. I did not know Dr. King. One of the funniest things in my life is how many people say they marched in Washington. According to the number of people I've met, it didn't have to be in the millions. I mean, like, oh, really? You were there? I'm not going to claim that. I was 10 years old in 1963, so I did not march in Washington. As a matter of fact, my parents were on the conservative side for a black family. My father was a Jamaican immigrant, went into the Army, lied about his age at 16, hyper-patriotic, joined the National Rifle Association. Like any other immigrant, worked 2 or 3 jobs. Think anybody with one job was slacking. Mom's Southern evangelical woman from Texas, thought that birth control was a Bible between her daughter's knees, and that was not just a metaphor. And so at the time we were learning about Dr. King in the 60s, my family, honestly, was slightly embarrassed by him because they were of the persuasion that the way that you defeat white supremacy is just assimilate, work hard, prove your worthiness, and then everything would be all right. I don't think that's dissimilar to how a lot of parents raise their children. They're saying that the way to keep your children safe is to keep them ignorant, unaware of all the racism and the sexism and the violence and the others, homophobia, transphobia. I could name all the isms that's going on in the world. Teach them just do the right thing and everything will turn out all right in your life. Well, there is a lot of value to doing the right thing, but there's no guarantee it's all going to turn out all right. And that's the problem we have right now. And so I approach Dr. King's dream right now with a lot of mixed feelings. That's the only way to describe it. I am so proud to be honoring such an iconic figure. I'm also proud of the women of the civil rights movement who are often unsung and unheralded. As a matter of fact, last March, when I was inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame, Ruby Bridges was inducted with me. And that was such an honor to meet her and to tell her about the impact that she'd had on my life. I also say this because I'm still mad about it. Serena Williams was also inducted, but she just sent in a video. I was mad about that because I was ready to fangirl Serena Williams. And I'm like, a video? Really? But back to the topic. And so the women of the civil rights movement, which I do want to pay homage to, I've had the pleasure and the honor of meeting a number of them because I live in the city of Atlanta. And Atlanta celebrates King Day like nobody. We don't even have King Day. We have King Month in Atlanta. You could go to an activity any day of January and find something to honor Dr. King. And so having lived in done my last 30 years of activism in Washington, in Atlanta, I was able to meet, Evan and Lowry, Octavia Vivian. Actually, Reverend C.T. Vivian was my boss for 5 years. He founded the National Anti-Klan Network in 1979 after 5 anti-Klan protesters were killed in Greensboro, North Carolina. And he felt that there should be a group that paid attention to what hate groups were up to. And so he and a number of other people founded the National Anti-Klan Network, which got renamed the Center for Democratic Renewal. And in 1990, I accepted a job as their program research director. So I used to go to towns that had hate group activities and kind of parachute in and help the towns deal with the aftermath of either a hate crime or a Nazi march or those kinds of things. It was also my job to go to Klan rallies and to monitor them, which is kind of hard to explain to your parents. Why are you the only black person at a Klan rally? I mean, what kind of job do you have, kind of thing. But, we did opposition research. We reported on them. But back to Reverend Vivian. Since Reverend Vivian was my boss, he used to always confound me when he would always say this very famous saying: when you ask people to give up hate, then you must be there for them when they do. He used to say that all the time. And I couldn't say anything because you can't curse a preacher. But I'm like, oh, shit. If the Klan hates me, I'm all right hating them back. I don't see where it's any skin off my cheek to hate a hater. But Reverend Vivian was right. Because once it became my job to participate in the deprogramming of these ex-Nazis and ex-Klansmen and all these different variations of haters, then I found that I couldn't hate them anymore because they'd become human to me. And they had their pains and their lived experiences that caused them to go where they went, like my pain and lived experiences caused me to go to other places too. And I had to learn to take their suffering as seriously as I took my own. I have to honestly say that pissed me off. Because when you have to give up anger and rage and hate as your motivation for doing social justice work, what's left? That became my question under the leadership of Reverend C.T. Vivian. And that's when all that conversation that he used to tell me about Dr. King, in fact, he didn't call him Dr. King, he used to say, Martin, Martin. We don't have that kind of permission. We have to say Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., civil rights leader, like it's all one word. But he would say, Martin, used to talk about love and how love has to be our motivation. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Rev, I don't even like a lot of people. What are you talking about, love? I'm mad at what happened to me, and that's why I do the work. But he really did eventually persuade even my hard head that love is a much more powerful force than hate will ever be. And it took a while, but I really started to believe him. Before I go on from the women and the civil rights movement into my topic today, which is calling in, I just want to tell another couple of stories about Reverend Vivian, because most of y'all didn't know this wonderful man, nor his wife, Octavia. One of the things that I loved about working for him was that you could just show up at his house unannounced. And he always opened the front door dressed impeccably in a suit like he was going to church. And he always had a big smile on his face, like, come in, sister. And you had to know him to know he never remembered anybody's name. So everybody was, come in, sister, come in, bro. You know, 'cause if you were under 60, he'd never remember your name. Even though he'd met me like maybe 50 times by that time. And he would sit you down on this green couch in his den and tell you the most remarkable, intimate stories about Dr. King and Coretta Scott King. His wife, Octavia, wrote the only authorized biography of Coretta Scott King. And so to be so warmly welcomed like a friend into their house was something that, first of all, I wish I'd had a cell phone because I'd taken some selfies, but you just have to take my word, it happened. Even today, I don't whip out a cell phone for selfies. That's another generation. But anyway, but the other thing that was so remarkable about the two of them and their partnership in the civil rights movement was how they were so intentional about nurturing younger activists like me with no titles, no barriers, no pretense. I'll tell you one more story about Dr. King. Well, actually, I got a lot of stories about Reverend Vivian. In 1991, in Carrollton, Georgia, which is a little north of Atlanta, for the first time, a black man had been elected fire chief of the fire department. And about 2 months after he was selected, he was found drowned in a pond near Carrollton in about 12 inches of water. And of course, the police summarily investigated it as an accidental drowning. The man was a certified lifeguard. A certified lifeguard doesn't drown in less than a foot of water. It'd be hard to drown a child in less than a foot of water. And so at the National Anti-Klan Network, we organized a march for justice in Georgia, it was called. And just to protest how this was such an obvious hate crime that the local police nor the Georgia Bureau of Investigation were not taking seriously in 1991, I believe. And so back to the Reverend Vivian story. It was about 95 degrees that June in Georgia. And we wanted to march from the firefighter's grave to City Hall, which is about 3 miles. In the 1990s, okay, how old was I? Maybe in my 40s. Reverend Vivian marched at the head of that march in a suit, 95 degrees, striding, setting the tone, setting the pace, and here we are, young people, slow down, Rev, slow down, Rev, you know? He was tireless. He was fearless. And he embodied Dr. King's dream for me more than anybody I've ever met in my life. I'm really sad that he died a couple of years ago. Actually, he died the same summer that two of my mentors died that same summer. Another person who had a profound influence on my life and activism was named Shula Miss Koenig. And Shula was an Israeli-American who had been asked to leave Israel because in the 1960s and 70s, she fought for the rights of Palestinians. And a good Jewish woman was not supposed to do that. And she was so rich and wealthy, they couldn't kill her. So they asked her to self-deport. But in leaving Israel, she thumbed her nose at the Israeli government, and she and her husband gave away their faucet factory to Palestinians and made instant millionaires out of their workers. Shula, the reason she's in my story, though, became what we call the mother of human rights education. She spent her wealth, and she actually pauperized herself, giving away hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars to help women like me found national centers of human rights education in our countries. And so I founded, along with Shula and Reverend C.T. Vivian in 1996, the National Center for Human Rights Education here in the United States. And over the next decade, Shula, C.T., and I distributed over 1 million copies of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And unfortunately, both Shula and C.T. died that same summer. And so I lost two of my most profound mentors at the same time. But we had fun, let's be clear. The National Center for Human Rights Education was unique. Not only was it the first human rights education center in the United States, but part of its lesser-known history is that it was founded by a Jew, a Baptist, a Muslim, and a heathen. And y'all know who the heathen was. Right? And so it was just that synergy, that energy when you do that. Now, the reason Reverend Vivian came on board with me to found the National Center is a profound statement that he made to me one time. By the way, let me just do my commercial. I'm going to talk about my book, Calling In, how to start making change with those you'd rather cancel. And there's a whole lot of people I know we want to cancel right now, so I'm going to get to that topic. But one of the things that Reverend Vivian also said to me when I was complaining about having to deprogram all these white supremacists and stuff and whether it was worth it, because, I mean, why am I spending time on people who would rather kill me? Trying to talk to them and help them re-enter society. And so Reverend Vivian surprised me when I took my complaint to him. One of those days I just walked into his house without knocking kind of thing. He said, Loretta, did you know Martin never meant to build a civil rights movement? I'm like, what you talking about? Because like I said, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, civil rights leader, it's all one word. What are you talking about? Martin never meant to build a civil rights movement. He said, no. Martin meant to build a human rights movement. I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. There were so many times I wanted to cuss at Reverend Vivian. You can see this is one of those times. And he pulled out a copy of Dr. King's last Sunday sermon, March 31st, 1968. And he read to me the words. I can't quote them exactly, but he said, we're in the midst of a triple revolution. A revolution in weaponry with our ability to destroy the planet. He was talking about the atomic bomb. A revolution in communications with our ability to talk to anybody around the world. And what would you think of the internet now, right? He said, but the most important revolution is the human rights revolution with the freedom explosion that's taking place all around the world. It was in that moment that I realized that everybody told me Dr. King had a dream. Ain't nobody tell me Dr. King had a plan to build a U.S. human rights movement. And it was in that moment, Reverend Vivian, I, Shula Koenig, Abdullahi Al-Nahim, who's a Sudanese Muslim lawyer, decided to found the National Center for Human Rights Education. Because you can't fight for human rights you don't even know you have. And I'm really pleased to report, just to move on, is that just this past Friday, the president of Smith College, Sarah Willie LeBreton, just whispered in my ear at our faculty meeting, you know, Smith College is going to create a year of human rights, Loretta. Thank you for your efforts. I'm like, yeah! Because even though I'm no longer working at the center, but Reverend Vivian is also right when he said, you're going to carry human rights everywhere you go and touch. just like I carry justice everywhere I go and touch. And he's so right. So that's my big news. I'm so excited. I tell you, changing an academic institution is like moving the Titanic fast. 5 years has gotten me to this. But it's going to work. It's going to happen. And if I thought I know I met one Smith graduate in the audience. Yeah. Be happy for our school, right? Okay. So now that I've run my mouth enough, let's talk about what I'm excited about talking about. In the audience, someone is passing out cards that you could pre-order my book on. It comes out February 4th. How did I get to calling in? Let's talk about that. I'm a late adopter of internet stuff. I mean, I didn't even get on the internet until my grandson pretended he didn't know how to answer a phone when grandma called. You know how they let the phone just go to voicemail? That pissed me off. And I told him, I said, baby, when I finally got hold of him, I said, baby, you're my only heir. If you don't want grandma to leave her whole estate to a battered women's shelter, you might want to put a special ring on the phone for grandma. Because you know I care about a lot of causes other than you. He said, oh, grandma, just get on Facebook. That's the way you can reach me. Y'all know what happened? I got on Facebook, and then he started saying that was for old folks. He went to TikTok or whatever that crap is. But I wasn't following this kid all over the internet. I could barely handle the Facebook controls. But once I got on Facebook, I saw how unbelievably mean people were to each other. Have y'all noticed that on social media? That people say stuff to people I know they don't have the courage to say to their faces. And they get away with it behind that veil of anonymity. So then I started asking the young people in my life, because I teach young 18, 19, 20-year-olds, what's going on? And they said, oh, you mean the call-out culture? I said, y'all named it? Because I thought like maybe I was the only one being offended by what I was seeing. They said, yeah, we've named it. I said, well, what are y'all doing about it? And the young woman I was talking to shrugged and walked away like it was as inevitable as gravity. Well, that answer in 2015 did not sit well with me. Remember, my bio, I'm a sexual assault survivor who ran a rape crisis center. I've talked to rapists, men convicted of murdering women like me. I'm a black woman who was shot at in Mississippi when I was 10 years old, but I've deprogrammed white supremacists, had conversations with them. I'm a black feminist, always negotiating feminism with the mainstream women's movement. I've been in more countries that were undergoing wars than most people. You know, when I was in Yugoslavia, I was in Dubrovnik when Yugoslavia broke up. I was, in the Philippines when they overthrew Marcos. I have been to a whole lot of crap. And I swear, in all of those situations, I still found a way to talk to people. So when they told me that there was nothing that they could do about the call-out culture, I was like, oh, no. I need to bring some lessons from the past to this moment. And so I started the project in 2015. Unfortunately, my son died. My only child died of a heart attack in 2016, so I had to deal with that, just 3 years I couldn't organize my brain to write for a while. But then something strange happened. The New York Times got in touch with me because they'd heard about me talking about calling people in, and so they did a story on me. And then next thing I know, my interest peaked up again. And I finished what I thought was my book on calling in the calling out culture. And then COVID happened. Happened to all of us. So I turned in a manuscript in January of 2020, and they sent it back saying, this ain't what we want. And then I took what I wrote in the book online, because once COVID happened and they sent all of us college professors home, they still had to pay our salaries, right? And so I thought that I would make the $90,000 Smith education available online for $5. And that's what I do. I teach calling in techniques and courses on white supremacy online for $5 a lesson. I call it the Walmart of education. You'll never get a better bargain for your consciousness than $5. That's our trademark. Go to my website, lorettajross.com, if you ever want to sign up for our next course coming in March. Last week, we had a conversation on the presidential election and our feelings around that. So anyway, going right along. So once I started offering the course online for $5, somebody told somebody who told somebody at Simon & Schuster what I was doing. And so my original publishers of the book, that didn't materialize because Simon & Schuster acquired the rights from my original publisher so that they could publish what we see now before us. But they also didn't like my 500-page manuscript, which was polemical. It was all about politics and left versus right and polarization and how we had to talk to each other and all that crap. They said, oh, no, that ain't the book we want. We want the book that tells how you came to believe in calling in. Because it's your personal story, your personal narrative that will be more persuasive than 1,000 books that psychologists are writing about criticism and how people can't talk to each other. So, this embarrassingly frank book is what I got to offer you now. In it, I talk about everything I've done wrong that I publicly confess, because I've done a whole lot of wrong you still don't know about. But everything I've done wrong that led me to believe in calling in. And most of that was because someone called me in first. They didn't give up on me when I made my mistakes. And so I'm teaching y'all how not to give up on yourselves or others for making mistakes, which is a really important lesson to learn, because if you can't forgive yourself for not being perfect, you're going to find it very hard to forgive others for not being perfect. And sometimes we choose our friends and our voting choices based on whether or not they're perfect or not. I frankly think that's how Donald Trump keeps getting elected, because we view our options as if we're trying to marry them instead of simply vote for them. And so we think of all kinds of reasons to justify not paying sufficient attention to the rise of fascism in our country. But that's another speech. That's the book that Simon & Schuster didn't want, so I'm not going to give you that speech. So, talking about calling in. In order to talk about how to call in, I had to do an analysis of the calling out culture. And I think y'all all know what calling out is, right? That's when you don't like what somebody has said, and you publicly shame, blame, and humiliate them as a way of holding them accountable, right? Let's say somebody uses the N-word, or somebody says something anti-Semitic, or somebody says something problematic. It doesn't matter. Take your choice. Now, obviously, we don't want that person to get away with whatever we think they getting away with. But the most important word that I use in that sentence is that you chose to hold them accountable publicly. Because you could have pulled the person to the side and said, you know, we don't say that word anymore. You know, or this is what I've learned when I messed up on somebody's gender pronoun. I mean, you could have done a whole lot of other stuff. But the fact that you chose to do it publicly meant that you wanted others to see you holding somebody else accountable. We call that virtue signaling. Let me show how woke I am. Let me see how top of stuff I am. Right? That's the whole call-out culture there. It's one thing for one person to say something bad about you. It's another thing when they get 10,000 people to say the same bad thing about you over the internet. It's a call-out culture. Reputations are being destroyed. You know, I wrote a line in my book that said, there's no case of trial and error because the first error puts you on trial. That's the kind of fearful culture we're in right now. And if you think we're scared as old people, think about young people who are living their lives very publicly on social media and are walking around deathly afraid that one of their utterances will come back and haunt them years later, because the internet never forgets. And so they're spending a lot of time self-censoring, afraid to offer their opinions on stuff, because if they don't feel like they know everything perfectly, they should not say anything for fear that they will get called out. And, of course, there's a lot of online bullying that's taking place, leading to suicides and stuff like that. So the call-out culture is problematic. The ultimate call-out is canceling somebody. That's when you think somebody has done something so horrible that they should be fired for it, at least lose their, reputation or their platform, their ability to speak. So it's also an accountability measure, but think about it. When you are calling for someone to get fired or silenced that way, you are doing the same thing that the prison industrial complex does. Because what do prisons do to people? They silence them, they exile them, they dispose of them like a used tissue. They don't ever want to be seen from again. So that's a question for us who believe in freedom and human rights. How can we use the same tactics of the prison industrial complex and call ourselves doing human rights work by calling for people to be canceled? Shouldn't we be not seeking other ways? I mean, in the immortal words of Audre Lorde, that's a master's tools kind of thing. And we will never wield the power of the state as viciously as our opponents do. So it ain't gonna work for us. Calling in, on the other hand, is also an accountability measure. But instead of publicly shaming and humiliating people or calling for their cancellation, you're going to use your integrity and your sense of inquiry and curiosity to ask questions about what's going on with the person. Because the ultimate question isn't whether the person has the right to use the N-word. The ultimate question is, why would you want to? What's going on with you that will make you even casually risk hurting somebody else? Yeah? That's really the more interesting question, in my opinion. What have you been through that makes you think it's okay to do what you just did? Yeah? So we've all been through something, and everybody's story is as valid as yours. So they didn't just, come out of Zeus's forehead. Something happened. And so a calling in approach would be, that's an interesting thing that you just said. Do you have time for us to have coffee to talk more about it? You can agree to listen to somebody without agreeing with what they said. What a marvelous thing that is, right? That's called debate. Honest exchange of ideas. I know it's old-fashioned right now, but it actually does work in a democracy. Now, sometimes you don't want to invest your time and attention in another person's growth because you don't want to call them out because that's going to take your time. And you don't want to call them in because that's going to take your time. And sometimes you just want to say, talk to the hand, right? So that's when you use calling on. That's another strategy you have. You can call on people to do better. And my favorite calling on sentence, because I'm a boomer, is I just look them dead in the eye and say, are you okay? I learned that from young people. Because when they say those 3 words, are you okay? That means, no, you ain't okay. You need to back up. You need to get out of my face, and you need to check yourself. You need to just get away from me, right? They convey everything with that, are you okay? That's a calling on statement. But what you're really trying to do with the calling on statement, if you know the theory behind it, is that you're trying to help the person adjust the difference between their inner good opinion of themselves and their outer behaviors, which of course the psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Because a lot of people think much better about how they are inside than they actually display. You know, the worst gossip thinks they're good people. You know, this is kind of how we are human beings that way. And so calling on is the kind of thing you would say, oh, Uncle Frank, I know you're a good person. You would run into a building and rescue somebody if you could. So why is this weird place in your life where you need to be homophobic against people you don't even know? Help me understand, Uncle Frank. Do I have the good Uncle Frank that I'm proud of, or this problematic Uncle Frank that says stuff about queer people and you don't even know him? Which one are you, Uncle Frank? Because your niece wants to know. That's how you have conversations with your family. You're not disposing of them. You're not withdrawing your love or respect from them. You're asking them to check themselves. That's what calling on does. And then, of course, the last option you have is to call it off. You have no obligation to participate in unproductive conversations with people who are lying, gaslighting, cherry-picking their facts, denying evidence. Basically, most people who ended up with today being an inauguration day for the wrong person. But anyway, I'm not writing them all off. Some of them are genuinely misled. But anyway, you have no obligation, whether it's in person or online, to waste your time that way. And so what I've done in my book is show you all of those options, how you can put them in practice, how you can have the most surprising conversations with people you never thought that you'd have conversations with. Because, see, we've gotten to the bad point in our society where people's politics have become their identities. So if somebody says, I voted this way, we suddenly assume that we can't talk to this person, that we can't see them as human. And they, of course, assume the same thing about us, right? The problem we have as human rights activists is that we desperately want people to trust us, but we don't do the things that make us appear trustworthy. Because we can become very judgmental, very hostile to people whose politics don't align with us. Hell, it doesn't even matter. Let's not even talk about being in the other political party. We have beefs with people who don't even know the latest problematic words. I mean, I'm still in a fight with a whole lot of people about the use of the word woman. And that's all on the left, by the way. That ain't on the right. You know, suddenly I'm not supposed to call myself a woman anymore. I'm like, where'd that rule come from? You know, did nobody ask my permission to call me out my name? You know, that's all going on our side. That ain't even happening on the other side. Right? So we can't even have conversations with the people we should be getting along with best over stuff, much less when we actually have differences that matter, like who should be president, that kind of thing. And so I offer this guidance. I don't know how much time I got. I may be running out of time. Huh? Can you just speak up? Not only am I blind, I'm deaf. 5 more minutes? Why don't I take 2 more? And you want some Q&A? Okay. And so anyway, I've written a book of instructions, but it's also a memoir. And I invite you to purchase it. Simon & Schuster would be happy if you bought me back for a book club discussion or anything like that. So All of that's available. I can do it virtually online. I'll close with one example, and this is actually from my online classes. In my online class, one participant, I used to have about 200 to 300 people in each class, told me she was blind. And every time she either had to walk through a door or up a step, some hand would come out of nowhere and place it on her body. And because she was blind, she couldn't see it coming. So every time it happened, it felt like a physical assault to her. Because how many of us want to walk through life with some stranger putting their hands on us and we don't even know it's coming, right? She said, and every time it happens, I go ballistic. Because when you're disabled, there's so many people putting their hands on you without your permission. And so I just go ballistic. And I know what she's talking about. And so she said, what should I do without that, Loretta, in the calling in culture? I said, well, let's just stop and analyze what's really going on. Because what's really going on is an example of kindness done badly, or bad kindness. Because the person is intending to help you. They just doing it in a messed up way, right? So here's a calling in strategy for when you encounter bad kindness. And bad kindness can show up anyway. Somebody correct your words or, tells you something that's obvious or really just helps you, get the spinach out of your mouth, whatever. First, you want to thank them for that kindness because you want to build upon those kind impulses that people do have. I want every human being to act like we act after a natural disaster, where we don't question who needs help, what your race is, what your income is. We just want to help, right? And I want us to act that same way after man-made disasters, right? So you want to thank them for that kindness because you want to build on that kindness impulse. You don't want that to go away by your reaction or negative reaction. But then the second thing you need to do is set your boundary. And you do that by saying, I really appreciate your effort to help me, but I don't really like people and strangers putting their hands on me, particularly since I can't see it coming. So you set your boundary. Say what you do want and don't want, right? And then the third step, and this is the winning step, but if you'd like to talk to me about what you could do in the future to help a blind person, can we have that conversation? Right? 1, 2, 3. Thank them, set your boundary, call them in. Right? See how you can turn what could be a contentious situation into a win-win for everybody. These are the techniques I want to teach y'all in my book. And thank y'all for listening to me. And let's have some Q&A.
Oh, okay. Is this thing on?
Do y'all want them to line up at the microphone?
It's on. Okay.
You're going to do Oprah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank y'all for having me.
Could you just hold up your book real quick one more time? And I think it's...
I just got this yesterday. The first hard copy of it, so really excited about it. Like I said, there's a card with a QR code. If there aren't enough cards, you can shoot the QR code.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 mics on stands, so if anybody who would like to ask questions, we also have 4 high school volunteers who can bring a mic to you if you need. So. Oh, there they are. Okay. I will just leave it at that. Thank you.
So you're an amazing...
Is it yeah, just get closer to it.
There's another one.
So you've had an incredible life. You've done so much. And you're my new hero. You're like, I want you as my mentor. I'll buy coffee. Coffee's on me. Lunch is on me.
Okay.
You can get some Vietnamese pho or something.
Just bring the mic closer because I am slightly deaf and can't.
So you covered the idea of the media and what it's doing, like it's leading to suicides. I actually lost a Haitian American friend. He's 24-year-old. His name was Wade, who was a Christian, and he was a work friend, and I lost him. And he just left his belongings at a restaurant and his medication, and he was found like in the river in the Charles River. And I think he lost hope and lost faith. I believe the media was confusing him, and I also feel like he was a hard time getting work. And so it was a tragic loss, and I went through all stages of grief. And that inspired me to start writing a play about him. But what can we? I believe the media itself, is the problem, and the amplification of who we decide to put plaster on magazines, who we celebrate. There's this personality worship, and there's so many beautiful unsung heroes in the world, but they don't need the attention. But I really believe these medias that are printed on, especially the digital medias, right now Facebook is trying to get rid of fact checking, and you could spread a lie without any repercussion. So you can say the most sensational thing, and a lie spreads faster than truth sometimes.
Okay.
So what do you think? What do you think we can be doing to kind of with the social medias and
Yeah, I think I got your question. One of the things that is hard for people to remember is that human emotions have not changed that much. It's just our toys are better. Okay, so there's always been shunning. I mean, the original definition of a calling out was Alexander Hamilton getting shot in a duel. That was the original use of the word calling somebody out. The same thing that happens today, social isolation leads to bad ends, it's been going on for all of human history. Right now, we're dealing with social isolation, not only leading to self-harm, but radicalization. I see a lot of young people get caught up in the hate movement simply because they didn't have anybody to affirm their significance, their worth, until someone manipulative comes along. That's how young sexual assault victims get groomed by predators. It's all the same. And so my proposed solution is that when you have a friend, make it your job to check on them frequently. Don't assume that everything is okay simply because they haven't complained about anything. Because it is that social isolation that's the best predictor of either self-harm or harm to others. And so that's what we have to be intentional about our friendships. I have a girlfriend who I've known for 40 years. Her birthday is March 5th. And you'd think after 40 years I'd never forget her birthday. Yeah, right. So one day I forgot her birthday, and she said, "Loretta, what day is it?" I said, "It's March 6th. She said, "What day was yesterday?" And that's when I realized I'd forgotten her birthday yet again. And she said something to me that was actually quite profound. She said, no matter how you love somebody, love and friendships are like houseplants. You got to still water them to keep them fresh and alive. You can't take people for granted. No more than you can take for granted that your houseplant will live if you neglect it. And stuff. And so that's the kind of thing. I'm sorry that happened to your friend, but his life helped you figure out what you could do better with other friends.
Yeah, he helped me through my depression.
Huh?
He helped me through my depression because once I made me realize I was chasing materialism, I was chasing.
Right.
I want to be like the tech billionaire.
Right. Don't chase materialism. Yeah. Let me tell you, the joy of life is learning how to become more, not learning how to own more. Yeah, you have so much fun when you've become all you can be. And the most unhappy, depressed people I've met in my life are the people who have the wealth to buy anything they want and find that it still doesn't make them happy. You know, I feel so sorry for them. So, yeah. Fun is becoming more always.
So we have a question here. Next will be over there with Jesse and then Jody. We will take questions.
Okay, you're facilitating. I didn't catch your instructions.
I'll do one.
So we're going over here next?
Over here.
Okay.
Hi. Thank you. I agree with so much of what you said.
Get close to the mic, y'all.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I agree with so much of what you said. And one place that I've been struggling with a little bit is the setting of when you talk to someone. And so when you talked about pulling someone aside, over the last few years, I have shifted my thinking a little bit away from that. I completely agree not to go on social media and all of that. But if I'm in a group and someone says something that I feel is harmful or really upsetting, I feel like in that setting, if I don't say anything right then and there, and then I pull them aside, everyone else who witnessed that comment thinks, oh, no one had a problem with that. That was okay. And so I've pushed myself to speak up in that setting, in that moment, and I just wanted to hear if you had thoughts on that and expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I have a phrase that I use in my book, and that is, you can always say what you mean, and you can always mean what you say, but you don't have to say it mean. That's a choice. So in any setting, you can lead with kindness and offer that correction, because you don't want the injustice to go unmarked, making it seem like it's okay. But you also don't want to cause harm, calling yourself alleviating harm, right? And so that's the choice of saying it with love and kindness, but choosing to say it so that people know, I love you, I respect you, and we're going to grow together from this moment. So keep in mind, it's always a choice to be mean to somebody. You're never compelled to do that. And particularly it doesn't work in the pursuit of justice.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your work with Sister Song and helping reframe how we think about reproductive justice. That's really been very inspiring to me. I'm thinking about today, and I'm curious about your focus on human rights is so important. But when we're in a country where, based on race or based on your gender, many people don't see a lot of us as human or having human rights. So whether that's not having the ability to control our own body, not having access to abortion, not having access to the means to raise our children, not having access to food or quality schools, I'm sure it's another book for you. But I wondered if you could expand a little bit about sort of the part about women, since today we're focusing a little bit on women's contributions, which are so often erased. Thank you. Thank you for that question.
I've written or co-written 4 books on reproductive justice, so I don't think I'm going to write another one. The latest one is called Abortion and Reproductive Justice. That'll be out in September. It's looking at abortion politics through a reproductive justice lens. The beauty of using the human rights framework is that they're inalienable. You have human rights whether or not the world, the society, the church, the state, whoever believes you do. As a matter of fact, the first time someone in the civil rights movement demanded that we respect human rights was in 1858, I believe, when Frederick Douglass used the phrase human rights to protest the lynching of a black man in New York City. Dred Scott went to court trying to declare himself as a citizen of the United States. He lost the Dred Scott decision. 90 years later, Dred Scott was proven right in Brown v. Board of Education. So just because you live in a world that denies your human rights don't mean that you don't have them. That's the perspective every black person has had to take from the minute we entered this country. Every indigenous person has had to take from the minute this country was stolen. We have to claim our human rights, even if the powers arrayed against us do not want to acknowledge our humanity. But that's the one thing that they can't take away from us. They can kill us, but they can't take away our humanity. As a matter of fact, I say this in my book. Those of us, those who are fighting us, think that they're fighting us, and they're not. And let me say this better. Those who are opposed to human rights only have lies and violence as their best weapons. They have to lie to the people they're manipulating, and they have to scare the rest of us into forced obedience. That's all they got going for them. While those are very scary weapons, they are very temporary weapons at that best. Those of us who believe in human rights, look at the things we've got on our side. We got the truth. We got all the evidence in the world. We got history. You know, thousands of years of human struggle. We're not going back to the Dark Ages just because some bozos think we should. And most of all, we got time on our side. These people simply can't bring us back to the 19th century around women's rights, no matter how much they want to. So if we got truth, time, evidence, and history on our side, we actually have the winning hand. Our problem is, and this is from the civil rights movement, our problem is that in our despair, we think we're the entire chain of freedom, but we're not. The chain of freedom stretches back towards our ancestors and forward towards our descendants. The only thing we have to make sure is that we don't break that chain at our link because we're cynical, despairing, apathetic, or pissed off that we're not in charge of the timeline. Because we're not. But we do know that we have a mission to hold that chain firm right now. So, yeah, I wish we did not have to deal with what we're having to deal with. I talk to young black students all the time that are tired of fighting racism. They feel like it should be over. And I say, yeah, but keep in mind, child, you have the right to say to white people what would have gotten your grandparents lynched. Now, you can choose not to say it, but don't deny that you have the privilege to do so. You're that chain of freedom right now. That link is in your hands right now. And I'm just saying that to black people, but that's for all of us. Everybody in this audience has a right to talk to someone who voted for Donald Trump, has an opportunity to. You can choose not to, but don't deny that you have a chance and a choice to. Because they're all in our families and stuff, right? And so this is how I see our fight for abortion rights and reproductive justice, because there's never been a time when men, no matter what they try, can actually make a woman do with her body what she doesn't want to do when it comes to having children. I mean, yeah, there are exceptions to the rule, but even Emperor Augustus had to command Roman women to have more babies, and they didn't even know what pregnancy was back then. They didn't even know men had a role in it. And most of these Republicans that ban abortion couldn't find a vagina with a flashlight, so. Really?
You've done amazing, amazing things to stand in the face of a KKK member would be trying. And I was sitting in the back listening to you speak, and you cut me 4 or 5 times. I thought I was doing my best. and, you know, getting along with everybody, doing my best. But when it comes to when somebody says the N-word, when it comes to being in a room with a KKK member, when it comes to stretching beyond where I would be comfortable, I realize that I'm lacking. And I'm thankful that you showed me that. I didn't realize I wasn't doing enough. I didn't realize. Now I realize I have to do better. And it's going to kill me. But I have to do better. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Very few people.
Y'all quote with me. Quote with me. What did Maya say? When you know better, you'll do better. So you don't beat yourself up. You know, if you can't forgive yourself, you will find it impossible to forgive others. I'll close with this. Oh, there's a couple more. I'll just say this in response. How we handle our mistakes and others is predicated on our childhoods. Because when we were children and we made a mistake, and if someone severely humiliated and punished us for making mistakes, then we think it's natural to do that to somebody else. But when we were children, if we were shown how to forgive ourselves for making mistakes, and that we can be loved despite making mistakes, then we're going to learn how to give that love and forgiveness to others. So as adults, our choice really is, do we want to continue those patterns of our childhood or do something different now for ourselves and for others? So choose that latter thing. Learn to love and forgive yourself. And by the way, when you do that, you learn not to be afraid of your mistakes or your secrets. The biggest victory for me was not being afraid of my secrets anymore and seeing how they were holding me back.
So, I'm pretty young. So I'm in 8th grade. I'm in my last year of middle school. And especially because my teacher, my social studies teacher, gets to pilot a new unit about civics.
About what?
Civics.
Physics?
So civics.
Civics, okay.
Yeah. So everyone is kind of trying to figure out where they fit in with politics and things like that. So there's a lot of questionable stuff that tends to happen in my school. But because I've known these people for so long, I still I'm lucky enough to be able to still talk to them. And I've had conversations with a few people where we get to have really deep conversations and talk about really interesting stuff, because my school is pretty diverse about what they've gone through and how that affects who they are today. And I think I'm getting somewhere with them, and then they go back to talk with their friends and the same thing happens again. The same saying not really great words or being homophobic. And I think that part of that is definitely that they just don't haven't fully understood that yet. And I'm lucky enough that I've have people around me that have been able to teach me more. But also I was wondering when somebody seems like they don't want to change, that they just want to that they don't want to listen, how is there anything more that you can do? Or is that a point where you just have to sit back and be okay, well, I've tried my best, and you can move forward with that information however you want to?
Okay, that's a good question. One of the things I've learned in life is that everybody learns what they need in their own time. You can't force anybody else's learning curve to operate in the time you want it to operate. So you're speaking to that person who then goes back and does the same thing over again. That just wasn't their time to hear at that time. But that doesn't mean your speaking didn't make a difference, because then the next time somebody says the same thing to them or something similar, maybe that's the time it will stick. and stuff. And so always make the effort, but don't take responsibility for not having the magic words to change people, because those words simply don't exist. If magic words could change people, married people wouldn't fight. So never beat yourself up for not having the magic words. Everybody learns in their own time frame, and you can take a lot of pride in having the integrity into offering them a listening ear, support, and options for doing things differently. That's your magic power. The ability to make the offer, not the power to make somebody change, okay? Take a lot. And by the way, since you are young, this is an important lesson that I got from science fiction. I majored in chemistry and physics, so I'm a STEMmy kind of girl. Your reputation is what others think that they know about you, right? But every time they look at you, they're looking at you through the lens of what they've been through, not the lens of what you've been through. So, what you need to pay attention to is not your reputation, but your integrity, because that's what you know about yourself. And you should spend all your time guarding your integrity and damning the reputation, because you'll never control what other people have been through anyway. So a lot of people, like these internet influencers and all these people, they're worried about their reputations. And they're usually sacrificing their integrity in the process. Their ability to look at themselves in the mirror without shame. Their ability to own their mistakes and to, try to be kind to people and all those kinds of things. Those are the things that make you very, very happy. Trust me. Guarding your integrity, not your reputation. What you're talking about is people who are paying more attention to their reputation than their integrity. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. We just have 2 more questions, and then
that's all good.
We will wrap up. But thank you so much.
I'm not as fortunate as the previous speaker. I don't have a civics teacher anymore, so perhaps you can be my teacher for the next few minutes. I really want to second what the previous question was. I have a real hard time speaking with a woman or a black person who voted for Trump. And yes, everybody operates on their own time. I understand that. The problem is we have a presidential election every 4 years. So what if that person I'm speaking with today has a time constant that's 6 years or 8 years or 20 years? How do you deal with such people practically? I'm really curious.
I hope you come to my online class because I talk a lot more about that. But the concept I use is called the spheres of influence. You'll remember it. Anybody sick of my class? Most of us probably sitting in this room are what I call 90%ers. I call us 90%ers because we have a high degree of ideological unity, meaning that if I said racism is wrong, everybody would agree with that in this room. If I said capitalism doesn't help everybody, everybody would agree with that in this room. So we have a high degree of unity with each other. But what that means in practical terms is that we spend entirely too much time trying to turn 90%ers into 100%ers, as if there has to be perfect ideological unity for us to do anything together. Outside of us are the 75%ers. These are the people who are very unlikely to be politically engaged, but they care about the same values that I care about. So for me, a 75% would be the Girl Scouts, for example. They're not going to lead a troop to defend an abortion clinic, although I wish they would. But we share a worldview, even if they're not as politically engaged. I know I'm getting to your answer. Outside of our 75%ers are 50%ers. Now, I call them 50%ers because that's about the level of unity we have ideologically, but they could go to the left or the right, depending on who last influenced them. That would be my parents. My parents could be influenced by the National Rifle Association or some preacher begging for money. That's when they're going to the right. At the same time, their progressive values showed up in community service and how they help people. So, you know, the way I talked to my mom, I said, Mom, you feed the hungry. And as a human rights activist, I just ask why they're hungry in the first place. We share values, even if we're working on things in different ways. So that's how you talk to a 50%er, right? It's through their values. You don't pay attention to those top-level words, you talk to their values. Getting to your question, outside of that are the 25%ers. These are people who have so little in common with our worldview that they would define freedom as the right not to wear a mask, when I would say freedom is the right to be free of oppression. So we can use the same words and mean totally different things by them, right? They feel that, you know, participating in democracy is electing Donald Trump. I consider electing Donald Trump the destruction of democracy. So we don't have a lot of common worldview. But it is possible to talk to them. The best way to do it is to do it in a non-judgmental fashion, to have the patience and curiosity within yourself, to ask them how they think, why did they think that, you know, ask them what would help them understand and listen to your point of view on those same kinds of things. Don't make it a debate, don't make it an argument, because the problem that we have in talking to MAGA or Trump people is that we don't know how to talk with them without talking down to them. And people can smell when you don't respect them. It's kind of like a bad odor, you know, they know that. Because you don't take their perspective seriously as they do, and then it's kind of hard to get them to take our perspective seriously because they know we don't respect them and that kind of thing. So that's part of the strategy. Sometimes facts work. Sometimes relationships work. Hold on, I'm sorry, let me finish answering him. Yeah, sometimes relationships work. I was able to convince my very homophobic family member that him saying stuff about gay people hurt me, and I ain't even queer. But it was about him not hurting his relative he did love, as I stood up for somebody who wasn't there. So sometimes family and love can work. So there's a number of strategies you can try. But the number one thing is don't language police, don't talk down to them, don't accuse them of being immoral for making a different political choice. Don't accuse them of being stupid, right? Those are the things that are like conversation non-starters. And then help them understand, you know, maybe, how do you think this is going to play out, for example? Do you actually think the price of gas is going to go down or the price of eggs will get cheaper? How long are you willing to wait to see if that's going to happen? Kind of thing. Just show honest curiosity about the rationales that they use. I think they said this was the last one, but this guy's eager to get his question in. Oh, you're the last one. Okay.
She is the last one.
She's the last one, because you've already had a chance to speak, if you don't mind. We can talk afterwards, okay?
Yeah. Sorry, I always need a mic adjustment. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for, I hope I don't stumble too much. I'm a fangirl, and I'm an older fan woman, but you've done a lot for me personally in guiding me in my continuing journey from calling out to calling in, always a work in progress. The last speaker talked about reaching people on the other side of the political spectrum, but I'm actually I'm asking for guidance on how to reach within our own group. You alluded to this before. I'm in a lot of different advocacy spaces, disability, racial justice, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, where you'll hear someone say something about your common cause and then say something ridiculous about another cause that you believe in. And even within this talk, you've talked a lot about how we're interconnected. How can we build the links in the chain of freedom and make our own friends and neighbors and our allies and our colleagues understand that we need to support each other to achieve equity rather than tearing each other down. And this is, and I look at this room where, I mean, you know, most of these, all of the people who are here, hopefully, are interested to some degree, but it seems that, you know, outside of this room, oftentimes we have trouble even listening to each other, and we do tear each other down. And you've brought us together, so I'm hoping you have some words of wisdom. Thank you so much for being so inspirational to all of us today.
Okay, thank you for the question. There's a couple of responses. First of all, it wasn't just words when I say you have to do this work motivated by love and not anger. Because when you do it motivated by anger, then that anger is going to seep out in every political relationship that you've got, whether they're on your side or not. And stuff. You're always a fight looking for a place to happen. And so change your motivation for doing the work. That's the number one thing. But when it comes to people within the human rights movement, in my book I offer us to have an understanding that we actually have 3 different kinds of allies in our lives. We've got our proven allies, our ride and die people that we've been through stuff with, so we know they're going to always be there for us because we've been through stuff with them. And then we've got our potential allies. These are the people who put up a Black Lives Matter sign, and that's all you know about them, right? But guess what? You already know enough about them because that white person who put up that Black Lives Matter sign, they've already signaled to you, or worn that blue bracelet. You know what they've told you? They ain't in the Ku Klux Klan. Ain't no Ku Klux Klan member ever put up a rainbow flag, a blue bracelet, or a Black Lives Matter sign. So they're your potential allies. Your job is to figure out how to work with them, not for them to figure out how to get to know you, right? And then the third category of allies are your problematic ones. That's who you're talking about. We all are on the same team, but like any other team, we all want to pull in different directions because, you know, everybody's wrong but us kind of workers and stuff. And I spent a lot of time in this book on that team because that's the team I'm on. That's the team I care most about. And we just have to let go of our certainties, our arrogance, our inability to recognize that it's us that have to step up our game, not everybody else step into ours. Because let me tell you, and I'll just say this is my closing words, if you think you're in a woke competition to a seasoned activist like me, all you're proving is how unwoke you actually are. You know, stop being an amateur in a professional fight. You know, if you're more committed to being right than being effective, come back when you grow up some more. You know, because we got to win. We need power. We need power to stop a human rights violation. You know, we don't need people that just sell wolf tickets and only can organize cults and stuff. And so that's what I talk about. Thank y'all for listening to me.
Thank you so much. How about one more round of applause? Because Stephanie. As we close out this portion of the program, I just want to, I'm going to be calling the MLK planning team that has been working since September on this program. I'm going to be calling them up to the stage. So if those, you know who you are, if you can slowly make your way up to this stage. I'm also wanting to thank a couple of community organizations in town. So we have a great appreciation for the partnership with the Association of Black Citizens of Lexington. They support us in this programming every year. we could not do it without their help. And so I want to call John Suber up here. And I would love everybody here to learn more about what ABCL does. They put out phenomenal work in this community, along with many other organizations you're going to see at the Activator Fair. And I'm also calling on Mona Roy as part of the Lex 250, and she has some special words as well. So, John, maybe I can hand the mic to you. Please tell us about upcoming ABCL events. Yeah, that's good. Oh, yeah.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Jonathan Suber, ABCL president. Nice to meet you all. So what do we do? This is basically from our website, so it's no mystery. It's all there. We encourage civic participation in the town for its black citizens and residents. We also serve as a repository for the history of black residents in the town. So we try to draw all the black citizens of Lexington together to let them know that you're not alone, you know, and we're here to help you and support you. And we want you to get involved in what's going on in this town to make it a better place. Okay, and then the phone. My notes. Okay. So yesterday one of the things we did was yesterday there was the Martin Luther King Day concert at Fallen Church, which was great. We commemorated the James Meredith March Against Fear on June 1966. There were some first-person accounts from Laverne Randolph of Newton, who was there to talk about how he was able to contribute to the civil rights activist cause in 1966 Mississippi, when he was actually just a college student at Dartmouth. We also heard an account of Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a victim of some violence during the civil rights activities in Mississippi. She's also one of the people honored out in the vestibule, not in one of the posters, but at the table here. I'd also like to talk about how we created these Black History portrait banners that you see out in the vestibule, which you'll also see displayed around the town in February, which is, of course, Black History Month. They'll be on the streets and also in the library. So if it's too cold outside, go inside to the library where it's warm and you can read about it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you all for coming, and I'll pass it on to Mona.
Thank you, John. It's amazing. These banners inspire us every day, and we're so grateful for the continuing addition of them. Hi, everyone. I'm Mona Roy. I'm the vice chair of the Lex 250, and very grateful to be a small part of the MLK team. There is no America without Dr. King, and as we prepare to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the first shot of the American Revolution, which happened right on the green here, we're reminded that the revolution for justice, equality, and unity must continue every day with programs like this and all of you stepping forward as dreamers and doers. After exploring the Activators Fair, which I'll be also there, I invite you to join us for the Unity March. Later today or at your convenience, take a moment to stand in front of the Lex 250 countdown calendar, snap a selfie, and share your dreams for a brighter future. Let's recommit ourselves to action, unity, and progress. Please share that picture along with your dreams and what you've been doing. And don't forget to tag us and use the hashtags Lex250 and Dreamers and Doers. I know that our select board chair is going to be doing this. I know that many of the leaders in town will be doing this. But the truth is, all of us have the opportunity to make change, and it starts with sharing our dreams and then listening to Dr. Ross's advice and actually being productive. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I'd like to invite Melanie Thompson up to this stage, Stephanie Sue, Larry Freeman, Tanya DeSelfi, Jody Finnegan. These are, Mona Roy. These are the faces of the people who have brought Loretta to us today. One person who is absent is our recently departed Chief Equity Officer, Hamali Shah. She worked very hard to ensure that we could bring Loretta today. And this is the type of work that I think on the Lexington Human Rights Committee we are advocating for every day for this town to walk the talk of supporting human rights, pushing for human rights, and advocating for growth for love. You know, there are plenty of other challenges we face in this town, but if we can grow our love, that is going to overcome, I think, a lot that we might think right now is too much. So anyway, I hope that we will continue to, I know we'll continue to enjoy the partnership with all of our community members, with our town, to be able to bring forward future events like this. So thank you very much. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Okay, yes, all right. So what you're gonna do, we're going to give one more round of applause to Loretta. Before, wait. I want this, we have many student volunteers. They've been so gracious, got up extra early. They've been sitting and absorbing the essence of Loretta. So they're sitting in our back. Any students that maybe didn't get the message, we are inviting you to spend additional time with Loretta. You can ask your questions. This is your time to have that opportunity. We don't want to waste our opportunities. So please, Loretta will be in the chapel room in about 15-20 minutes. We need to take a little break. Everybody fuel up. There's catering from Nkuzo, which is a wonderful Black Haitian restaurant, fusion food in Watertown. So please check that out. And because we know you need fuel. Okay, sorry, and I'm talking too much. Okay, and one final thing. I want to say Larry Freeman was the one who came up with this idea, Women of the Movement. So, please. Melanie Thompson is the one who said, we need an exhibit. We need a museum-like exhibit. And so thank you to Larry and Melanie. And then Jody, of course, you are always making sure we are on track, and all the community members. Committee members. Thank you. People who wrote the poster. Oh, there were, I've lost count, at least 10, 15 people who helped create these biographies. And so anyway, thank you. Thank you, Loretta. Your wisdom. I think that's it. Okay. Please enjoy the exhibit and food and refreshments. Thank you so much. I wanted to put...